tonight we have a special meeting and also our committee meetings. Councilman Dixon had an out-of-town family funeral and is not able to make it back in time tonight, so we're going to proceed in his absence. We do have a quorum here. In terms of the special meeting, the first agenda item is the consideration of appointment of two applicants to the mayor's task force for the environment and litter prevention. We have two vacancies for that task force, and we also have two applicants, Larry Moderig and also Todd Ball. Are either Mr. Moderig or Mr. Ball present tonight?
Mr. Ball.
Okay, Mr. Ball, come forward and just introduce yourself if you would. Thank you.
My name is Todd Ball. I lived here 35 years ago, worked for the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries and Coastal Management. I've since become a private environmental consultant, working across the country, and purchased 22 acres, and I'm moving back shortly and retiring here. And I had talked with Sambo, rented the library Airbnb, and talked with him, and he suggested that I volunteer some of my time. But the town could certainly use some of my expertise, and I'd be glad to give back, because it's the favorite place I've lived in my 35 years of employment.
Well, I appreciate your interest and your willingness to step forward. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Ball?
When are you moving here?
I'm stuck between, my house is being built, Bill Waters is building it, but I'm getting close to buying one in town, already completed, because I live in Lexington, North Carolina, and I've come to the conclusion that I cannot have a new house built 4 hours away. It's gonna drive me crazy. So, I'm trying to find one of the houses to buy in the interim, so it could be as early as 2 months.
Okay, any other questions? Corey, procedurally, do we have any issue if we were to appoint Mr. Ball with the fact that he's transitioning here?
That would be fine. We've had folks move to the area and move from the area for this board, and it's happened before, so we're fine.
Okay, all right. Thank you, sir. Larry Moderig, I know Larry, I do not see him, but he is a resident of town and lives on the lower end of Mosley Street. I think he has had some conversations with Councilman Turner in the past about a willingness to get involved in the community. I think he would do a good job. I'm not sure where he is tonight. This is an appointment process, does not require a vote of the council. Since I do know him, and since we have two openings and only two applicants, I am going to use the mayor's discretion in appointments and appoint both Larry Moderig and also Todd Ball to the mayor's task force for the environment and litter prevention. And again, Mr. Ball, I appreciate your willingness to step forward, and look forward to any ideas you have for the environment and litter prevention here, and particularly our entrance and exit ramps as we come into town. But welcome to the town of Edenton, and welcome to this particular appointment. Appreciate it very much. The next matter that is before us is a public hearing. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. We are getting a lot of familiarity, thankfully, for these types of hearings. We've had 2 or 3 over the last 6 months. This is one of those where we do have to go through the 4 standards and answer those questions in the affirmative before we grant the permit application. This is a public hearing on case number MSUP 25-02, and it is a special use permit application from John Sellers for the use of townhomes at 706 and 708 North Oakham Street, and also 202 Dick Street. Those properties are identified as Chowan County PIN number 7805-20-81-5589, 7805-20-816704, and 7805-20-81-6753. Before we begin with the public hearing, we do have a procedural matter that we need to address. The applicant is the father of Councilman Sellers, and Councilman Sellers, did you have anything that you wanted to bring to our attention?
I think it would be best if I recuse myself from.
I think it would be best also, and we accept your request. Is there any objection to him recusing himself from this matter? And Councilman Sellers, it normally is a recusal from a vote and also from deliberations and discussions. So we've asked that you keep that in mind, and appreciate you bringing that to our attention. That being said, when we do these hearings, the first thing that we do is we hear from our staff, and I'm going to ask that Dwayne Wilton come forward to make his presentation from the staff.
Yes, sir. Like you said, this is on 3 existing parcels, 2 of which recently had vacant homes that were dilapidated. They've been torn down, so now there's 3 vacant parcels sitting on 0.65 acres. It is zoned R5. To the north, we know it as the College of the Albemarle Boys and Girls Club, Edenton Children's Schools District offices. To the south is residential. To the east is Johnny Holmes High School, and west is also single-family residential. As I do with all the staff reports, I pulled information from the existing land use classification, plan goals, and objectives. Existing land use classification for those 3 parcels is medium to high-density residential. And the purposes for the town to encourage population growth, promote economic development, provide recreation and open space, and foster housing choice. Listed the goals associated with each one of those, as well as the policies that are related to those standards. Public utilities, municipal water and sewer service are available. It's within the town, so it's protected by the police department, and located on 2 town-maintained streets. You see a map identifying the 3 parcels, and the stars indicate those parcels. The Edenton Plan Board held a public meeting on February 3rd to review the major special use permit application. The board recommended approval of the application as presented with staff recommendations and conditions. They're requesting 9 townhomes in the R5 residential zoning district. And the exact proposed use of land and allows town council to place restrictions on the actual development. This is an appropriate planning mechanism. Granted a major special use permit, reasonable requirements may be added to the permit in addition to what is located in the report. What I found after working with this group for several months, refining kind of the site plan, setbacks and different things, is the proposed use is compatible with the Edenton future land use map. The Edenton future land use map identifies the parcel and surrounding area as suitable to medium and high density residential. The land use map is on the next page, showing where the star is located. I did have 4 conditions that are pretty standard to this type of development. All necessary traffic improvements, utility installation and connections, and drainage, storm water detention improvements installed and board by the developer. Stormwater drainage will meet NCDQ regulations. We did meet with the tree committee who approved the landscape buffer yard, which would be between the proposed multifamily and the single family in the rear. It would be a 10-foot maintained buffer yard. And also the details and improvements, including not limited to facade, signage, infrastructure, sidewalks, landscaping, street lighting, and parking, shall be installed and constructed according to UDO requirements. Staff does find the proposed use to be in conformity with the Edenton Shoreline Land Use Plan Officer following a consistent statement. As you can read, what the consistent statement would be, and identify the policies related to that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wilton. I believe in terms of whether or not this is in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other official plan adopted by town council, you have found that it is consistent with that?
Based on the definition of R5, the medium to high residential fits into that definition of units per acre.
And the conditions that you read are the conditions that staff recommends be attached to the permit if the permit is granted.
Yes, sir, yes, sir, and any further ones that the planning board, they agreed, and whatever further ones they need.
And is this a type of development that requires TRC review or not?
It will be, so we would, you have a site plan that shows parking, the site plan has the minimum parking requirements, driveway aisles, we would look at that, we'll do sewer connections with Public Works, water connections. So yeah, we would probably have, we will have a TRC meeting just to, make sure everything's in order, once we have, engineer site plan drawings and stuff.
Okay, any other questions that any of the council members may have of
Now, when you
Mr.
say
Wilton?
parking,
Mhm.
they're gonna have their own parking space?
Yes, sir, so, each one has to have a certain amount of parking space, I believe it's 1 point, it depends on the number of bedrooms in each one. Right now, they had exceeded, what would be a 2-bedroom, they have 5 in each one of the clusters that you see on your, site plan, and the parking would be in the rear, so they would have to meet the, at least the minimum parking requirements that the town has.
Is that what here?
The applicant is here, yes.
So, when you're on Oakham Street, looking at the proposed townhomes, you'll see the townhomes and then the parking is gonna be in the rear of that and not fronting Oakham Street.
The idea that I have, from the applicant, they can speak more onto it, would be, it'd be a one-way in, one-way out from Hicks and Dick Street. So, you would come in, park, and then you would go leave out the other side, so you never really have a traffic concern around those two. You don't have people trying to fight to get out one way or the other, so it'd be one way in, one way out.
There's no common area or pool or
There'll be no pool, there'll be common area, you'll see open space on
Okay.
your, located on the site plan.
where they can get together as a group?
Yeah, yeah, there's, I forget, how wide the open space is, but there's open space there.
And when you say townhomes, will they be attached to one another or will they be detached from one another? And I think of,
As the developer, he can speak more to it, they kind of define it as, single-family attached.
Mhm.
The town doesn't have a definition to fit that, so it's
Okay.
considered multi-family. It would be basically 3 clusters of 3, so 3 townhomes with a space, 3 townhomes with a
Okay.
space.
Row houses essentially.
Yes.
Being so close to the school, are we looking at teachers possibly occupying these?
I think that's the idea behind it. I mean, you're within walking distance to the high school, walking distance to the college, central district office for the schools, Boys and Girls Club, CLA. Walking distance to several of them, UPS. It could definitely turn into be if done right, it would be a positive for the area, absolutely.
As far as costs are concerned,
Yeah, I
probably
can't,
we take two occupants per unit to afford.
Yeah,
I'm looking at
yeah.
teachers now.
yeah, I mean, per board, yeah, it would probably be a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. I will let them speak on that,
Okay.
and present, but, I think that's the idea.
Can we get back to the parking? The only reason I'm on parking, because this is my ward, and I get a lot of calls from some neighbors on Hicks Street. So if they go up, it will be known that these people cannot park on Hicks Street at any time, because one side of that street is supposed to be vacant. And we've got people right now parking on both sides of that street, which is supposed to be against the law. And I get complaints about that.
well, on that, maybe we can get, maybe you and Corey and Chief LaFawn to look at that area and find out if there's appropriate signage there. And if there's not, let's get it there. And if it's a question of enforcement, making sure that we, ride by there every now and then to make sure, of that.
Thank you, Tim. The police chief and I discussed this last Friday. We met to go through some of the updates from the planning meeting. And this is one of the things that we discussed also, that, his officers are looking into as far as enforcement. I do think we have adequate signage along there, and the way the, parking is arranged now. And we're gonna work on the enforcement piece and talk with some of the vehicle owners about, to make sure that they understand that, it's not allowed on that street.
Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you, Dwayne. The next part of the hearing is a presentation from the applicant or his or her representatives. If there's anyone here, I see a few of you here on the back row. Come forward. I don't know how y'all have assigned the talking duties, but please come forward.
Good gosh, this is gonna be fun.
Yeah, I'll bring Chris up, he's the one that's gonna be the builder.
I always
He knows
like it
all-
when Larry's here, because I got somebody to introduce me.
Thank you, Chris.
And Chris, I know you, but if you'll just state your full name for everybody else
Chris
and
Hale. Yes, sir.
your name of your company.
Chris Hale, CSH Builders. So, any of y'all that are familiar with us know that we're trying to put some, and this is a vague term because it means something different to everybody, but we're trying to put affordable housing in the community. We've done numerous houses, that are in the couple under 200. We've done them in the 200, 225 range. There's a need for that. We're hopeful that this would be a spot for teachers, young professionals, etc. We think we can come in under 250 on these units. Maybe a little better than that. There is parking behind there, so we're not gonna have parking in front of the units. We think they're gonna be a nice look from the road. Parking would be behind. So I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm not a teacher, I don't know what a teacher makes, but I know that we need something for those folks to live in, and then they have to live together, There is a possibility that some could be held for rentals, which might make it even more affordable for teachers. But they are, in fact, Dwayne and I always have this conversation, here, with the statutes and the rules that we're working on, they're considered multifamily, but these are actually single-family attached. They can be individually bought and sold, and you don't have to sell it like a triplex. You don't have to own the whole thing. So that's a good entry level for folks.
So you won't be retaining ownership, or Mr. Sellers won't be retaining ownership and renting these out, they'll actually be for sale.
Yes, at least some of them. I do have an investment group that I'm working with, and, they may wanna hold some. Everything we build eventually is for sale, but some can be held for rental property if that seems to suit the community, and suit the needs. And if the numbers work, it's always math. It always comes down to math. So,
How long is a project like this from start to finish?
the way we've laid them out, I believe that we could, realistically, we're summertime starting, if we got approved right now. Would be, by the time we do everything we get to the next level, I'm sure we'd be summertime. But we could build 3 in probably 6 months. So we're probably looking at, I got a lot of other stuff going on too, but, we're looking at probably a 1.5 to 2 year project total.
Do you anticipate staging it, like building 3 at a time and then 3
Yes.
more and then 3 more?
Yes, absolutely. And we would probably advertise for pre-sale or pre-leasing, and that could speed it up as well.
Right.
I mean, if they're flying off the hook, then we would probably increase our speed.
Will these be brick and wood, or just all wood?
There will be most likely siding with brick accent,
Okay.
And going through the planning, had some great ideas. We're gonna make sure that the roofs are different levels. Renee, do you have that one sketch? Because what you don't want, if you've ever seen a townhouse community where one person replaced their roof and the others didn't, and it's weaved in, that's not a good look. So we're gonna make sure whether that center unit is higher or lower, we're gonna make sure that everybody has their own roof. So as, because it's also hard to get 3 people to agree with spending money.
Does that include fencing too, fencing?
There probably will not, we don't have fencing in the plan at this point. There will be some green space at the end, so we also are considering some sort of an HOA agreement, just enough to cut grass. Because again, we're thinking it's probably gonna appeal to teachers and young professionals. I mean, it's open to anyone, of course, we're not gonna discriminate in any way, but, these might be folks who, you know, their favorite hobby is not cutting grass. So we'd like to have it look good all the time. So that would be a very modest fee, just enough to cut grass during the season, cut all the grass everywhere. Everybody's house looks good at that.
What type of interest have you had? I know I asked you to give me a tour of some of the things you were doing out in Cape Colony, and that's not technically in the town of Eden, but what type of interest have you had in those moderately priced houses that you showed me that time?
Well, one thing that's really good for the community, the two that you came out and toured, actually, those homes went to first-time buyers, and they were not in their 20s. They were 40-year-old people. It was the first time they were able to buy a home. Since then, we're putting two around the corner. We haven't even started drywall on one of them, so. They're in the 200 to 240 range.
That's what I was gonna ask you, what was the price point?
We also have three more that we're getting ready to start in there, and we work closely, we've got several good lenders, but, we also are working with the USDA, which is a good way to get people into their first home. I've got another project with the county coming up that is gonna be more of that. Now, we do a lot of big custom homes too, and I'm just tickled to death that everybody's 401k did good and they were able to retire and buy them a big old house in Edenton. But we need these folks to have a place to live too.
Where is that area you're talking about?
Cape Colony?
Cape Colony, okay.
Yes, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
thought you came here to retire.
I'm not very good at
Okay.
it. Not very good at it.
Okay, are there any more questions of Chris?
I do.
Yes.
So I know that, first off, you guys do really great work. You and Frank have taken you on personal tours of some of the projects and you do really, really great work. The council has adopted a vision of, this, you're saying, what you're echoing right now, which is affordable housing. I know that your target audience is gonna be teachers. Starting salary right now for blue collar employees and teachers are around $37,000 starting off. And I think my only issue would be is that at $250,000 or even less, it's not necessarily meeting the affordability piece for us. So, did you guys explore any alternatives to this particular project versus doing row houses or MDUs or anything like that?
Well, what's gonna happen is you take the price of the land and you divide it by the amount of units. I would love to see it be R3. If it was R3, we could get another building. The cost of each lot associated with the cost of each house would then go down. Again, it's kind of math. That's why Cape Colony's appealing. We're in an end of it where it was less developed and the lots were very affordable. That's a big piece of it. I tell people all the time, particularly in custom homes, the difference is the land cost. That's the difference. I mean, there's Kempsville Building Materials in Elizabeth City. There's one in Chesapeake. There's not much difference in price there. We have some really, really tremendous craftsmen in this area. Not a lot of discount. You know, it's what things cost. So finding the right property, we've had ideas about how to get people on a piece of property. Town workers, county workers, et cetera. Teachers. Perhaps there's something as a group the town could do to help with the cost of that. The cost of the building is the cost of the building. I mean, somebody tells me how many square feet it is, I can kind of tell them about where it's gonna end up, because I know what it costs. So really, I think the median income, while teachers may be at 37, 38, is probably 60 in this part of the state. And, you just gotta look and see where we can get the price. We have sold a couple that were probably in the 180 range, and they're probably 850 square feet. So when I've had this conversation before with folks, it's there's really only three ways I can affect the price of the house. You know, I can use inferior stuff, I can use inferior labor, or I can make them smaller. And I'm not gonna do the first two. My only choice is to make them smaller. But if any of y'all would like to tour the house down here that we did on Hicks, it's 850 square foot. It was drawn as a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. We made it a 2-bedroom, 2-bath. It'd be perfect for a couple of teachers. One might be a tenant, one might be the homeowner.
Is that green, is it?
The little greenhouse, my
Yeah.
public.
It's not public works, right?
Yeah.
Public works.
Yeah, and we've done that model several times, and, you know, folks like it, but taking the ceiling height real high.
What is the planned square footage and number of bedrooms for this particular project?
These are gonna be 1,000 square foot, and right now they're shown as 2 1.5s. We'll figure out if we can make them 2 2s, 2-bedroom, 2-bath. That would be better if you had multiple people in there. Wouldn't be scheduling the full bath.
So it could be open to a married couple and both of them are working and a child.
And look, you know, I help my kids get started. My folks help me get started. I'm convinced if folks have a little help getting in the housing business and they use some common sense and listen to some good advice and ride the housing market, they can move up. Most Americans' wealth is in their home. And you just, you know, it's a great starting point. I think if we have some of this in this community, those folks will also be able to move up as their family grows, their income grows. And there should be a line of folks waiting for their turn to get started. So that's my long-term vision.
I think all of us appreciate this, because what a huge need this is in Edenton, and don't stop here, you know. It's great to see something like this, because we only want to grow too, you know. But we appreciate so far everything that you've done, and we'll continue it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I'm very concerned about the folks that work here and live in here.
Yeah.
Live here. There are a lot of communities where the folks that work there have to go live somewhere else. And they're gonna spend their money somewhere else, they're gonna pay their taxes somewhere else. We need to find a way to have everybody here live here.
Thank you for thinking that.
We're working on that, and I know you are too, and I appreciate your presentation. Is there anyone else on behalf of the applicant that wishes to speak? Anybody else? I know we got Renee here, not to put you on the spot. Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys very much, appreciate it.
As a part of this process, we also have an opportunity for the public to speak. If anyone wants to speak on this particular major special use permit application, please come forward. Just like we normally do, your comments are limited to 3 minutes, but we would welcome any comments that the public may have. I'll open the public hearing portion of this. Did you want to speak?
Yes, sir.
Okay, come forward just like you normally would.
My name is Hal Murray, and I had just one question, and that was to make a clear distinction between the conventional rental property versus Airbnbs. That issue's come up before, and I was just wondering what you could say about that.
Do we have any response to that?
Are we, Mr. Murray, are we talking about the major special use permit here for these units?
Yes, sir.
Or for the next? And can you reiterate your question again? I mean, are you asking the permissible use of the structure itself?
Yes, whether the structure would be used for Airbnb, or would it be a conventional rental? The gentleman said that they were gonna keep it as rental, but that word rental can mean, you know.
And
We would,
Yeah, please, please, yep.
we would operate within whatever rules and regulations there are. I think our initial intent is long-term rental.
Okay. That was,
Now, if, I haven't even looked at,
Or
I haven't even
purchase.
considered
Or
Airbnb.
purchase.
Or purchase, absolutely, but on the rental side, it would be long-term rental, you know, a year's lease, that sort of thing. I haven't even thought about the Airbnb thing, honestly. I mean, if it comes up, I guess we would ask if it's okay, but we haven't even considered that.
Long-term rental keeps people in the community, is the
Correct.
reason I asked.
Correct, that was our intent. It's not vacation property at this point.
Thank
That's
you.
not what we're thinking. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else from the general public that would like to speak on this application? There appearing to be none, I'll close the public hearing and public comment portion of this hearing. We next have an opportunity for town council to make any comments or ask any further questions. I'll open up the floor to my colleagues if any comments or further questions that any of you may have. Okay, there appearing to be none. As I mentioned at the start of this hearing, we've gotten a little bit of practice on this. As you will recall from recent hearings of this nature, we have 4 fundamental questions that we have to answer in the affirmative. If we answer all 4 of those in the affirmative, then we'll have a ultimate vote on approval or disapproval. The first consideration that we must consider and find in the affirmative is that the application and subdivision as applied for will not endanger the public health or safety. We need a motion and second in order for us to vote on that preliminary question. Entertain one.
So moved.
Got a motion, we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and second. Any further discussion on this particular issue? There appearing to be no discussion, I'll call a vote. All in favor of a finding that this subdivision will not endanger the public health and safety, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next preliminary question we must address is that this particular subdivision will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property. I'll entertain a motion and second on that.
So moved.
Second.
We've got a motion and second. All in favor of us entering a finding that this particular subdivision will not injure the value of adjoining or abutting property, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The next preliminary question we must address is whether this subdivision will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. I will entertain a motion and second on that question.
So moved. Second.
Motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of a finding that this subdivision will be in harmony with the area in which it is located, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the last preliminary question we must address is whether this particular subdivision will be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other plan officially adopted by the town council. I'll entertain a motion and second on that preliminary question.
So moved.
We've got a motion by Councilman Bond. Do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and second. All in favor of a finding that this particular project subdivision will be in conformity with the land use plan, thoroughfare plan, or other plan officially adopted by the town council, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So we have affirmative votes on the 4 preliminary questions, and that leads us to the ultimate question of whether or not we will approve this application for subdivision. And at this time, I will seek a motion and a second that we approve this subdivision with the conditions that have been recommended by town staff.
So moved.
We got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, any further debate or deliberation or comments on this ultimate question? All in favor of approving the major SUP as presented and with the conditions that have been recommended by town staff, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll have the paperwork done and signed and presented to the applicant. Is that the next step? But this particular case number in SUP 25-02, the major special use permit application from the applicant has been approved. Thank you, gentlemen, and thank you for being here tonight. We next move to another public hearing. I would like to distinguish this public hearing from the one that we just had. The one that we just had was a quasi judicial hearing that required us to go through those 5 questions. This is not that type of hearing. It's a text amendment, and text amendments give the council in its discretion to vote yes or no to the text amendment, and we do not have to go through that same process that we just went through. The text amendment is to allow accessory dwellings as a permissible use in our zoning districts designated as R5, R10, R14, R20, R40, and RA zoning districts. At this time, we noticed a gap in our ordinances that did not include allowing these. The best way to describe, in practical terms, an accessory dwelling is a backyard mother-in-law suite or a backyard dwelling unit above a garage. We will require and ask that Dwayne Wilton come up and give us a presentation of the staff reports. We will have a public hearing. We will have the opportunity for us to discuss this matter. We just will not have to go through those 5 questions that we have. So Dwayne, if you'll come forward
Yes, sir.
and give us a staff presentation on this, please.
Yes, sir. This is for a text amendment. You have the language in your packet regarding accessory dwelling units, known as ADUs. I've received a bunch of questions about this over the last year regarding, kind of looked into it, saw majority of municipalities and counties allowing it. Chowan County has language which a lot of this is from their ordinances, and have went and looked at other places like Greenville, Raleigh, and how they did it and kind of mirrored. And we went to the planning board twice for public hearings to get public input on this particular thing. As you said, some people call them granny pods, mother-in-law suites, but it is for use on single-family lots in the R5, R10, R14, R20, R40, and RA, which are all of our residentially zoned areas in town. This would be adding section 11.42 accessory dwelling units on single-family lots. So what I kind of did is went through and listed some of the highlights from the planning board and what I found while doing the research. ADUs can be used as affordable housing. I know that we keep finding, keep asking the question, what is affordable housing? This is one of the routes a lot of places have gone to help alleviate that question with a smaller unit in the back, maybe a single teacher that needs to rent for a year until they move on or something like that. ADUs can be used by aging homeowners who want to move into a smaller home. ADUs can be used by people with disabilities or medical challenges. For size and location, ADUs must be smaller than the main residence on the property. Must be built on a permanent foundation. ADUs must comply with setback and yard requirements, density requirements. ADU require a permit from the local development department, which would be myself, and building permits. So they would go to the building inspectors. Then they send me a zoning permit. I look at setbacks, so it's kind of dual control. A professional survey is recommended to comply with the setbacks and to locate utilities. ADUs must comply with applicable safety, health, fire, and building codes. They must have standard utilities like water, sewer, and electricity. Must have standard mechanicals like heat and plumbing pipes. House bill was introduced, 409, House Bill 409 back in 2023. It kind of stalled in the Senate, but it was requiring municipalities to have ordinances in place by, I think it was October 2023. That deadline's coming past, but a lot of people, a lot of places saw the writing on the wall and created ordinances to allow ADUs. As we were going,
Can I interrupt you just while it's on my mind? So is that one of the things that brought this issue to our attention? I think you said there were some calls also.
yeah, more or less.
Tell us how this is coming before us.
Yeah, I've had calls from developers looking to buy potential properties, and the only way they would want to buy it is if it was allowed ADU in the backyard. I've had people wanting to move their mothers into a place behind their home. Our ordinance didn't say yes, but it didn't say no, and didn't offer regulations. It was just an accessory structure, is how it's defined now, which is typically your sheds, your barns, different things not being lived in. Yeah, it happens all throughout town, regardless of whether it was allowed or not. This actually puts regulations on it, and, you know, just has a kind of an oversight to not, some regulations where it doesn't get too big or anything else. So that's kind of how it was brought to my attention. It was community members, potential home buyers, potential developers, coming to me. Only while doing this research for this did I find, the House bill that had saw in the Senate that was, gonna require municipalities to have regulations in place. So, and we always look for, out-of-the-box thinking when it comes to affordable housing. You know, what are other people doing to have teachers that can't afford? You know, I hear stories about, local teachers having to live in hotels or having to drive from OT and all this, so how do we get them more local? So there was three big things that came up, in our planning board sessions, both from the planning board as well as, citizen input, was, really defining it, and, I found the definition from the state of North Carolina, and attached that, that's highlighted in yellow. Also, the ADUs must have off-street parking. I know that's a big thing when we start talking about some of the Airbnbs throughout town, parking on streets that are really narrow, kind of like L Street, place like that. Some of these places don't really have driveways anyway, but, you know, requiring them to have some sort of off-street parking. And also, they want to put language in there, excluding, the Edenton cotton mill, which is already in their covenants anyway, but reiterate that, you know, ADUs aren't allowed in the, cotton mill district. So that was the three main things.
And this was recommended by the planning board and also recommended by staff?
Yes, sir. This, like I said, this has gone through the planning board twice, as well as 2 public hearings on the subject.
Are there any questions that the council has of Mr. Wilson?
And what are those districts? R5, R10, R14, R?
The simplest way, is if you have, R5, that's a 5,000 square foot lot minimum, R10 is 10,000, all the way up, RA would be your 5 acres, or now, 1 acre after the last tax amendment for single family homes. So it would be allowable in all residential districts.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Appreciate it. Next, as we did in the earlier hearing, I will open the public comment and public hearing portion of this hearing. Is there anyone from the general public that would like to come forward and make comments on this particular text amendment? Come forward. Either one of you?
No, you go ahead first.
My name is Hal Murray. I had just 2 questions that were not directly addressed. One is that the cotton mill was excluded, and I was wondering whether there was any wording about the historic district, whether the historic district would be included or not. I guess as written, it sounds like the historic district would not be excluded at all. It's all in the R5, R10, et cetera. So
Yeah, that is correct. The cotton mill, when it was redeveloped back in the, what was it, mid-90s or late 90s, they, because it was owned by the cotton mill, they placed restricted covenants on that included a restriction that there not be accessory dwelling units. And so that is in place, and we can't violate that. And so that was the reason that was carved out.
But the historic district doesn't have any of
Right,
that. The other question was with regard to square footage requirements. They did say that the building had to be smaller than the original structure, but I was wondering whether there was a square footage aspect to that.
And so, from what I've seen here, there are two tiers. One when, the unit is detached, and then one where it's within a single, principal single family. It appears that they can be no larger than 50% for one classification of the primary building, and 25% when it's within a principal single family dwelling. So there's 2 categories for square footage, one being 25% and one being 50%.
And those are maxes, right?
Yeah.
So there's no actual numbers relative to the building itself.
Just a percentage. 1,000 square feet would be 250 or 500, depending on unit that's either detached or attached.
Makes sense, thank you.
Thank you. JD,
Yes, sir.
come on up.
I noted in the text amendment that they have to have off-street parking. Is there anything that says that that does not mean that then they move their cars out onto the streets so that the off-street parking can be an accessory dwelling? I asked at the planning commission meeting that they do a traffic study to determine what might be done about that.
So, here, from what I'm seeing from the general requirements, and Dwayne, please correct me if I'm wrong, it explicitly states the accessory dwelling unit must have off-street parking. So that would be in addition to anything that's existing for the home.
Yeah, the reason why I wouldn't find, so like, it all depends on how many bedrooms you have. So if you have a 2-bedroom home, I think it's, if I remember correctly, 1.5 parking units, per room. So they would require 3. So this would just be mandating that they have additional off-street parking in addition to what they have for their home.
So it would be cumulative to what's already there. I mean, they need to have that behind that curb cut on that property.
Thank you.
Thank you, JD. Any other members of the general public that would like to speak? There appearing to be none, I'll close the public comment and public hearing portion of this hearing. Next, we have town council questions and deliberations. Any deliberations, questions, comments that town council would like to add? Okay, I see a lot of head shakes in the negative, so we'll now move to the portion where you consider the text amendment. At this time, I would entertain a motion one way or another to either approve or not approve this text amendment. And a second. We have a motion.
That we approve the text amendment.
Okay, Councilman Costa has moved that we approve it, and we've got a second from Mr. Bond. Any further discussion? There being none, all in favor of this text amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Dwayne. Text amendment does carry. At this time, we move from the special meeting portion of tonight's meeting to our committee meetings. Councilman Miller, we always keep you busy. So I think you've got 2 agenda items. The first one is the golf cart ordinance amendment. Did you want to speak to that, or did you want me to? You got it? Okay.
Mayor, in light of the tragic golf cart accident in town over a few months ago, a concerned citizen requested town officials during the public comment segment of our town council meeting to consider a review of the town's golf cart ordinance to see if any updates are in order. Ever since that request was mentioned, the town manager and the police chief have carefully studied the local ordinance and based on their thorough review determined that an amendment stating seatbelts must be worn by all occupants while a vehicle is in motion should be an additional safety rule to the established golf cart ordinance. Administrative committee would like to recommend forwarding the amendment request to full council at our next meeting.
And I know we've got the person who asked us to take a look at that in attendance tonight, and I don't mean to embarrass her, but thank you for bringing it to our attention that there may be a gap there, particularly as it relates to that. So thank you very much for bringing that to our attention.
Appreciate that being addressed, thank you.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
for clarity, was there not language already that required? I thought previously it was stated that it was.
We've got the chief here.
It just said they had to be equipped, it didn't say they had to use them. So it's a play on words. I mean, most folks would have used them, but, you know, then we've got attorneys in the room, they would have said, no, it's not in there, so. Town manager myself looked at it for a year, talked to some people, and felt like if we put that wording in there, we would do it.
Just making it more specific.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And make sure some way, another social media or otherwise, and I'm sure we got 2 members of the press present that the general public is aware of that change, and we expect them to abide by that change.
So we will.
It's not going to be effective until the next meeting, but report it that we're moving it on to full council.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay?
Next one, Mayor, and the last one is for fire prevention ordinance update. This new ordinance will replace the existing Chapter 92 ordinance titled Fire Protection in the Town of Edenton's Code of Ordinances. This update is to prescribe regulations consistent with the most current edition of the North Carolina Fire Prevention Code and nationally recognized good practice for safeguarding life and property from hazards of fire. The provisions of this update ordinance will be applicable to buildings and structures specified in the North Carolina Prevention Code and to other conditions hazardous to life and property. The Administrative Committee recommends forwarding this fire prevention update to full council at the next
Thank
meeting.
you. And we've got Chief Bass here, and Chief Bass, based on your position as our fire chief, you felt it was time for us to take a look at our fire.
Most of our previous one was done in the nineties, so we're updating that. We've added some stuff to it over the years, but this will bring us up to date with the fire code. A lot of the stuff in the old one was before the fire code was written, so the language in it's changed a lot from then. So now we go by the 2018 fire code manual. The new one should be coming out in July, maybe some tweaking in that when that comes out, but this will update us now to be up to date on the 2018.
In your opinion, it was time for an
Yeah.
update, it certainly
Yes.
sounds like it.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay, and your committee recommends that we vote on this at our next
Next
meeting in full
meeting, I
council,
believe it's March.
March 11th.
And
Okay,
that's it, Mayor, for the Administrative Committee.
thank you as always. Okay, well, I am pleased to announce we're at the end of the agenda, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All right, any opposed to that motion?
Could I,
Yep.
after we adjourn, could I meet with the council for a minute?
Well, you can, we can't have a meeting.
Well, can I talk to y'all for a minute?
You can talk to individuals, you cannot talk to us as a group. So if you want to catch somebody as they're going out the door, you can do so, but we have to be very careful about meeting, without a public hearing, and also meeting, without
I just
notice.
wanted to ask, was anybody going to Chapel Hill to see the next basketball game? Can we talk about that among ourselves?
Well, I'm a Chapel Hill fan, and where were you 4 weeks ago when we weren't winning, and now you bring that
No,
up now?
I was sitting at the TV at the house throwing water bottles.
I understand, but they are on a winning streak, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. Okay, well, we have a motion and a second, and I think everyone voted for us to adjourn. As always, folks, we appreciate you being here.